This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A verdict has been reached in the trial of 3 white men charged in the February 2020 shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man. Let's take you inside the court now in Georgia. All right, they may be waiting for the jury to be brought in the room, but we have been told there is a verdict in this case. 3 defendants, Travis McMichael, his father Gregory McMichael, William BRYAN is the other man, all facing charges in this case, accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. Let's go to Sam Brock right now, who is in Brunswick, Georgia, following the trial for us. Bring us up to speed, Sam.
Lester, certainly some tense moments right now. There are 27 charges total. They range from aggravated assault to felony murder, malice murder, which doesn't have to be premeditated, Lester. It can happen in an instant. It is about intent. And right now, what we are really curious about are some of the arguments that were presented over these last several weeks, especially as they relate to a citizen's arrest law, which, Lester, dates all the way back to the Civil War era, and some interpretations over what that language might mean about actually witnessing a crime versus probable cause and the totality of information and circumstances available to, in this case, the McMichaels as they pursued Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old who was not armed with a weapon. As the prosecutor pointed out, no wallet, no ID. Let me send it back to you as we see these proceedings continue. Yeah, Sam, we see the defendant standing right now, and the jury is being led in the room. Of course, we do not see the jury, but the court standing as they are brought in, and the verdict to be rendered in just a few moments here as we continue to watch. 3 men, only one accused of actually shooting. That was Travis McMichael. The other 2, his father, Gregory McMichael, essentially accused of rallying his son to pursue Arbery. William BRYAN, a neighbor who videotaped the altercation, was in another vehicle and accused of helping to essentially corner Mr. Arbery, leading to his death. All right, let's take you back inside the court.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Madam Foreperson, I understand you have reached a verdict as to each defendant.
We have, Your Honor.
If you could please hand your verdict forms to the sheriff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and address each one of these verdict forms separately. The first verdict form I have is the State of Georgia versus Travis McMichael. Mr. McMichael, please stand. Verdict is as follows. In the Superior Court of Glenn County, State of Georgia, the State of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, case number CR 000433. Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. I'm going to ask that whoever just made an outburst be removed from the court, please.
Oh, God. Jesus, step out. Step out.
As this court has indicated, I ask that there be no outbursts in the court, and I expect as much from the gallery. Please respect the court's desire for this as we move forward. If you feel like you need to make a comment or otherwise demonstrate with respect to the verdict, I do ask that you step out of the courtroom now. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 4, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 5, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 8, false imprisonment. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. We, the jury, find the defendant Travis McMichael guilty. Dated this 24th day of November, 2021, signed by the foreperson. Have a seat. As to Gregory McMichael, in the Superior Court of Glenn County, the state of Georgia versus Greg McMichael, case number CR0200433. Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael not guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 4, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 5, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 8, false imprisonment. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. We, the jury, find the defendant Greg McMichael guilty. This 24th day of November, 2021, signed by the foreperson. As to William R. Bryan, in the Superior Court of Glenn County, state of Georgia versus William R. Bryan, case number CR2000433. Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan not guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan not guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 4, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 5, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan not guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 8, false imprisonment. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Signed this 24th day of November by the foreperson. Go ahead and have a seat. Court having read the verdicts and accepted the verdicts, anything from the state?
No, Your Honor, nothing from the state.
Anything from the defense?
We ask the jury be polled, Your Honor.
Do all defendants ask the jury be polled? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask each of you individually a set of 2 questions with respect to the verdicts that I have just read. If you could please respond when you hear your juror number. Juror number 1, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
Juror number 2, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
I think, I can't. Okay, 2. Juror number 3, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes.
Juror number 4, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
Juror number 5, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 7, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 8, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 9, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 10, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 11, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 12, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
And juror 16, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
The jury has been polled. Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
From Greg McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
From Mr. Bryan?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, what that means with the court having accepted your verdict is that your role in this case is now at an end. What we're going to do today is I'm going to have all of you, the panel and the 3 alternates, go ahead and retire into the jury room. I'm going to address a couple matters logistically with you in the jury room once we get done here. But before we do that, and before I excuse you, I do want to thank you publicly for your service here in Glynn County. It has been a long trial, and I appreciate the evidence, and that is what we ask in this court. It's a very simple ask in a very complex way, so it's appreciated. When we all got together, I say we all got together, when we got together at different times, I said that I was going to thank you a number of times and how I was going to tell you I do truly appreciate your time here. Hopefully you understand why I said that when we started. I do also hope that you got a little bit of an insight into what goes on in a trial and maybe understand a little bit more of how important it is for members of our community to come down and be part of this process and serve as jurors in this community. So again, thank you for that service. And I'll come address you all in just a moment. You're excused.
All right, for the jury.
All right, the jury now exiting the courtroom after delivering their verdict for Travis McMichael, the only person accused of actually pulling the trigger that killed Ahmaud Arbery, guilty on all counts. There were split verdicts involving his father, Gregory McMichael, on the case. He was found not guilty on malice murder, but guilty of felony murder. Split verdict also on William BRYAN. He's the man that took the video who was in another vehicle. There was a split verdict on him, but a resounding, otherwise resounding verdict by this jury that only met a fairly short time, somewhere around 10 or 11 hours. I'll go to Sam Brock right now. And Sam, tell us how long they've been deliberating and tell us what the scene has been outside as word of this verdict filtered.
That should give everybody an opportunity.
11 hours, Lester, is about right, and it's interesting because the word was coming from the court on about a 5 or 7 second delay. So they would make the announcement in the courtroom, then there would be reaction behind me. Of course, just an eruption of applause after that first guilty verdict for Travis McMichael, which, as you mentioned, Lester, is the person who fired the shotgun, the 3 shots that killed Ahmaud Arbery. Now, they were chanting Ahmaud Arbery's name first, then we want justice. We want justice. There were boos following the not guilty verdict for malice murder, which, as you mentioned there, Lester, malice aforethought is the most serious crime here. The idea that it doesn't take a bunch of time for an idea or hatred to bubble up, that it can be in that moment, just the intent to kill or to cause serious bodily harm. They found Travis McMichael guilty, Gregory McMichael, his father, who was in the truck at the time, not guilty, but guilty on the remainder of the charges. But as you look at sort of the complexity of all of this, Lester, many guilty convictions, a couple of not guilty. The crowd here, by and large, seems pleased with what happened here. Self-defense was really the largest argument, along with the citizen's arrest law in Georgia, which has since been revoked, that was used in court. With respect to self-defense, you had a situation where 3 white men were chasing Ahmaud Arbery through a neighborhood, and he was not armed. He didn't have anything on his person except for pants, which the prosecutor described as baggy enough to make it clear that he didn't have a weapon. They chased him anyway because they suspected that he had committed some form of crime, either trespassing, burglary, theft, or all of that. But in the end, that was never proven. What was proven in this case was the question of whether or not there was a right for them to pursue him under this age-old 1860s law in Georgia, as we mentioned, that has since been revoked, that allows someone, this is, by the way, Lester, at a time when police are on horseback, it takes them hours or days to arrive on scene. When citizens were empowered to take a more proactive law enforcement stance, do they have the right in this case? Do they witness a crime? Or do they perhaps have probable cause to do so? The jury in this case finding that that was not applicable. And for self-defense, if you instigate a situation like this, if you are looking for someone, as the McMichaels, as the jury found, were in fact looking for Ahmaud Arbery, and you hold a gun towards them, this would be the equivalent, we were told by legal experts, of walking into a convenience store and holding up the cashier for money. And if they raise their gun and try to fight back, I should say, if you raise your gun and they try to fight back and you shoot them, claiming self-defense. They said that is not applicable in this case. And again, as you look at the verdict here, guilty for felony murder, which means that you committed murder in the act of other felonies. Aggravated assault was one of them, false imprisonment as well. Then you are guilty. And another point here I would just underscore from the prosecutor is that all parties involved in a murder, if they committed some portion of this, they were involved in some of it, they were involved in all of it, and it looks like the jury agreed as well. The analogy that she gave there was for a Super Bowl team. Everybody gets a ring, whether you're the quarterback, whether you're on the bench. And in this case, there is a shared responsibility. The jury found, with respect to the 3 gentlemen who are now convicted of crimes in the death of Ahmaud Arbery, that there was shared responsibility there, Lester.
And Sam, we'll obviously be trying to find out what the jury was thinking as we perhaps get more details, but they made a request today to see some evidence or listen to some evidence. Can you describe what that is?
Yes, that request came in about 9:40 this morning. They wanted to look at pieces of video, high-res and low-res video of Roddy BRYAN, who was the neighbor who also used his pickup truck in this pursuit, to see what was on there. 3 jurors, we're told, Lester, were sitting actually in the jury box, and then another 9 were seated in the gallery. Why they were split up like that, perhaps those were the 3 that were confused about some of that sequencing and wanted to get a closer look. It's not clear why that was the structure. But the other part of this, and this is important, was that the 911 tape was played. And that 911 tape, you hear the dispatcher say, it's 911, what is your emergency? And the response from Gregory McMichael is, I'm at Satilla Shores right now, and there is a black man running. And he starts to say down the street, and then the dispatch overrides that. A black man running down the street was the stated emergency when the question was posed. There was also video, Lester, shown in court that showed Ahmaud Arbery from the neighbor's camera vantage point running down the street, and shortly thereafter, maybe 5 or 10 seconds, you see one McMichael get in the truck, then the other, and they chase after him. But it's pretty clear, and it was certainly argued in court, they couldn't see what he had done. They just saw that he was moving the street. All of this, in total, part of the arguments presented by the prosecution for why these 3 defendants should be found guilty.
And Sam, I'm going to get some legal expertise here in a moment from one of our guests, but I do want to ask you, what do we know about the potential penalty now? Obviously, for Travis McMichael, guilty on all counts, very long, life in prison. What about the others? What do we know?
Life imprisonment. I mean, an aggravated assault charge alone, which they have all been convicted of, can be years, decades. I mean, there's several aggravated assault charges here that they were convicted of. So all 3 of these defendants are looking at potentially sentencing of decades behind bars, Lester.
All right, Sam, thanks very much. Also joining us is Georgetown School of Law professor and NBC News legal analyst Paul Butler. Paul, thank you for being with us. First of all, walk us through malice murder versus felony murder, because the jury obviously saw it differently depending on the defendant here.
Yes, so malice murder in Georgia requires the intent to kill. Mr. Gregory McMichael and Mr. BRYAN were not the trigger men. Travis McMichael was the trigger man, and he was found guilty of malice murder. The other two were convicted of felony murder, which means that they had the intent to commit another felony, including kidnapping or false arrest of Mr. Arbery. In the eyes of the law, Lester, all three men are murderers. Felony murder is murder, just like malice murder.
All right, so let me get your reaction in general to this verdict. 11 hours of deliberations, the jury wanting to hear a little bit of that phone call, 911 call, and then coming to this verdict. And a split verdict, as we noted, on the two non-trigger men, if you will, in this case. Break it down for us. How do you think this went?
You know, to many Americans, this case looked like a modern-day lynching. 3 white men in 2 pickup trucks hunted down and killed Ahmaud Arbery, who was jogging through a neighborhood. The unanimous verdict from a virtually all-white jury is the result of a compelling and persuasive case made by the prosecutor. This case had a lot of historical resonance. The tape that the jurors wanted to hear today is the 911 call to the dispatcher. What's your emergency? The answer was, there's a black man running down the street. Lester, there's a lot of historical resonance in those words. There's an American history of racial violence and white supremacy and unequal justice under the law. Criminal trials are not instruments of social change, but they can tell us something about social progress. In Georgia, in 2021, in one case, 1 black victim received equal justice under the law, and in this country, that counts as progress.
Once you establish the fact that they did not witness Mr. Arbery commit a crime, did that completely take off this idea of a citizen's arrest, take it off the table, and leave the jury with no other choice?
So the Georgia citizen's arrest law comes from the 1800s. It predates slavery, and it was designed to allow private white citizens to capture runaway enslaved people. The law was changed after this case happened, and so the defense successfully allowed the jury to consider the old law. But even under the old law, if you wanted to arrest someone, you could only do that if you saw the crime happen yourself or you were in hot pursuit. If that wasn't the case, then you had no right to stop these people. What the jurors were instructed on the basis of the strong demand of the prosecutor is that if the defendants didn't have a legitimate right to make a citizen's arrest, the case was over. That would mean that they provoked the encounter with Mr. Arbery. They had no legal justification for doing so. And in Georgia, if you start the fight, if you're the initial aggressor, you can't claim self-defense. So as soon as the jurors discounted the citizen's arrest law, they almost had to convict these defendants of murder.
And you rightfully point out this is one case, this is one verdict, this is one state, but a lot of people are going to see this in the context of the Rittenhouse verdict that still has touched a raw nerve in this country. Can you help explain what the difference between these cases is?
You know, every case is different. Obviously, the facts were different in each case. The facts were much better for the prosecution. In this case, Mr. Rittenhouse successfully claimed self-defense, and he made an argument that the jury bought that each of the 3 people who he shot posed a deadly threat to him. A difference we have to acknowledge is also counsel. Mr. Rittenhouse had a $2 million legal defense fund. Money was ginned up after people like former President Donald Trump advocated on Mr. Rittenhouse's side. We'd like to think that money doesn't make a difference in our criminal legal system, and just the fact that Mr. Rittenhouse had a lot of money on his side doesn't fully explain why he won. But that is another difference between that case and this case in which the killers of Ahmaud Arbery were found guilty.
All right, Paul Butler, we appreciate you being on. I want to turn, if I can, now to Caroline Polisi, a white-collar and federal criminal defense attorney who is an attorney and is here with us. Good to have you with us. Let me ask about the next step in this. This was not tried as a hate crime per se, but now the federal prosecutors will get a bite at this apple. Can you tell us what that might entail?
That's right, Lester. And it's actually pretty rare that the feds came in prior to seeing the verdict in the state case, announcing ahead of this trial, actually, that they were going to charge these three defendants with federal hate crimes. And so regardless of what happened today, these three men were not going to walk free. You know, I think the family of Ahmaud Arbery is breathing a sigh of relief today that they got some semblance of justice out of that courtroom. I would just note that the quote unquote split verdict that we're referring to, it's really a distinction without a difference. As Paul noted, in Georgia, murder is murder, whether that's malice murder or felony murder. And the penalty is indistinguishable. These three defendants are all looking at life in prison, Lester.
All right. Let me ask you about going forward in terms of whether there might be an appeal. Probably not unexpected, but what might be a basis for an appeal for any of these three men?
Absolutely. There will be an appeal. Any defense attorney is always going to make a motion for a mistrial. We heard actually multiple motions for mistrials during the rebuttal closing arguments by the prosecutor. There was this argument over the really, really important law that was key in this case, which was the citizen's arrest law, that defunct law that Paul was referring to, no longer the state of the law in Georgia now. Nonetheless, it was in play during this case. And you saw the defense attorneys there question the prosecutor's statement of the law. And they were referring to the temporal boundaries of whether or not these three defendants could effectively effectuate a legal citizen's arrest, even though they had not seen any crime take place in their presence by Ahmaud Arbery, even though it was merely their suspicion that perhaps a crime had taken place. And even so, Lester, it wasn't even a felony, remember. The only thing that they could say with certainty was that Mr. Arbery perhaps was on this construction site of a home. Well, that's not good enough. Even under this citizen's arrest law, it's not good enough to think somebody may have committed a crime. You heard that 911 call there. You heard it from Greg McMichael's mouth himself. He called 911 because there was a black man running down the street. That is not what qualifies as enough probable cause, if you will, for implementing that citizen's arrest law. And you saw the defense attorneys make motions for mistrials. Likely there will be an appeal in this case, but I don't think they will win. All
right, Caroline Polisi, thank you for joining us. We are also joined by Washington Post columnist and NBC News political analyst Eugene Robinson. I'd like to get your thoughts, Eugene, on not only this verdict, but the impact and how it will be received in different circles in this country.
Well, Lester, I have to say that what I'm feeling is an enormous sense of relief that what I always saw as clear justice in this case has in fact been done. You will recall that after the killing, the local authorities initially decided not to prosecute at all. They didn't charge these defendants with anything, when in fact, what we saw on that videotape taken by Roddy BRYAN, now one of the three convicted of murder, was a modern-day lynching. That's what it was, pure and simple. And I don't know any other way to describe it. I certainly don't know any more succinct or more accurate way to describe what we saw. A black man running down the street, get him and kill him. And that's what happened. And I think that the jury verdicts were fascinating to listen to, because the jury obviously took its charge very seriously. They made fine distinctions between malice murder and felony murder and who was guilty of what. But in the end, all three participated in this lynching of Ahmaud Arbery. And while it is true that criminal trials don't make social policy, but they do tell us something about the country, and they tell us, and they told us something about Georgia in the year 2021 today. And I think that news comes to the enormous relief of a whole lot of people in this country who were watching this jury and this trial on pins and needles, and hoping that the Arbery family would get justice.
This verdict comes at a time that I guess things the jury doesn't know about in terms of the efforts to prevent members of the black clergy from being in the courtroom. They did hear in one of the closing arguments of a defense attorney a reference to Mr. Arbery's physical condition, his toenails. I guess it's hard to know right now, but do you think that sort of thing had an impact?
You know, it's hard to know if it had an impact on the jury. That disgusting and vile and Jim Crow era reference to Mr. Arbery's toenails by the defense lawyer in the closing, it certainly had an impact on me. But who knows how it impacted the jury. From the verdicts and the nuance in the verdicts, I just think this jury took its job very, very seriously, and tried to do as a judge instructed and as the law instructed, and they saw murder.
And finally, let me ask you about that 911 call, a black man running. Is it your guess that would frame how the federal case would work?
Oh, I certainly do believe that will be a major issue in the federal case. If a black man running down the street is a crime, then this country is in trouble. And that's what he reported on the 911 tape. That seems a clear violation of Ahmaud Arbery's civil rights. And I'm happy that the federal government is going to pursue the case. I'm even happier, however, that justice was delivered.
Eugene Robinson. Eugene, thanks very much. On the right side of your screen, you'll get some of the crowd on the courthouse steps in Brunswick, Georgia, celebrating the verdict. And again, all three men guilty of murder, all counts guilty for Travis McMichael, who actually pulled the trigger, fired the fatal shot. Gregory McMichael, his father, also found guilty on murder charges. William BRYAN, guilty on murder charges. And we'll, of course, be hearing more about malice versus felony murder. But as the point was made, there will not be a huge difference in terms of the potential fates these men face. There's a lot to talk about here, a lot to cover. We'll be working the story throughout the day. That concludes our coverage right now of the verdicts in the trial for the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. More reaction tonight when I see you for NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Lester Holt, NBC News, New York. Good day, everyone.